All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Boyle. This is our Business of Yoga Beyond YTT podcast call. And today I'm really focusing on helping people to integrate their life experience into their work and also developing your niche audience. And I have Helena here, and I'll just let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Helena Spears, and I am a part-time yoga teacher here in the Comox Valley, which is on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And I teach private yoga and online yoga for people who have persistent pain, and also for people who have persistent pelvic pain. And I have a long history of both of these items. I have fibromyalgia. I have a type of arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis, which is an inflammatory type of arthritis. And then I also have painful bladder syndrome, aka interstitial cystitis. And that is a condition in the bladder where, the definition of it is an uncomfortable sensation in the bladder, basically, that could or could not include in pain. So for me, the painful bladder syndrome is how I've started to refer to it, because I don't have so much of a bladder lining problem as I have a muscle tension problem and a nerve hypersensitivity problem. So my contact is helenaspearsyoga.com, and in January I'm going to be launching a new program. It's a mentorship program for those with persistent pelvic pain, and it's a 10-week thing, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm hoping to bring yoga into the pelvic pain world, and it's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and that's all really wonderful, and I really appreciate how well you speak to your own personal experience and what you have gone through, and also that you're bringing this program to other people. I wonder if you could speak a little bit to where you got involved in yoga and how it's helped you.
Well, I always kind of dabbled a little bit in yoga, nothing too serious. It took a really long time for it to get its claws in me really well. And so I started off with like a raw DVD, just community classes, that kind of thing. And then I was really struggling with a lot of back pain. And I saw, I don't know if you ever heard of Neil Pearson. He is a yoga therapist and a physiotherapist who offers pain care yoga, and he had a workshop. And so I went to the workshop and I learned a whole bunch about what persistent pain really is, how yoga can help to disrupt this cycle of pain, and that kind of launched me on my journey. However, I really struggled to connect to a yoga practice after going to this workshop. It was like a 3-day thing. I kept on going to regular yoga classes in town and straining my back and flaring up my pain, and it was all just way too hard. I just couldn't, and the classes were too big. They couldn't pay enough attention to me and offer practices that I really needed. And then all of the gentle stuff was all at times that I couldn't connect to because, work and all that. So I just decided to go to yoga teacher training because I had no intention really of teaching. I thought, oh, maybe, but probably not. I just wanted to immerse myself and learn more from the ground up. What do I need to know about everything about yoga? And I figured what better way than going for yoga teacher training.
That's fantastic. And I really appreciate that you're also speaking to that the studio yoga really is not for everybody. I mean, I'm a studio yoga teacher, and when I have a class of 20 plus people, I can't attend to everyone's needs, and so I have to be very clear that this is my studio practice. When I'm wearing my yoga therapy hat and I'm working one-on-one, now that's a completely different story. But
and what's interesting that happened is that it never even occurred to me then to hire a private yoga teacher. And I emailed the studio and said, this isn't working for me. I'm constantly straining myself, so I'm not going to be coming anymore. And they didn't email me back. I heard nothing back.
No.
And they never offered one-on-one sessions to me. So, if that happened to me as a teacher now, I would immediately say, we need to have one-on-ones. It doesn't need to be like this. We can figure out a different way for you to practice that's going to be helpful for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that the studio didn't reach out to you in that way. And I know this is very individual, but I feel like in the yoga world, we think of everything happens in the studio. And really, there's a lot that does happen in the studio, but I think the more potent things actually happen in that one-on-one environment, or a workshop environment, or in a place where more information can be delivered and tailored to the person that you're working with.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what you're doing with your own work.
Yes. And even, the obsession with vinyasa, it's really not for everyone.
Mm-mm.
And I have a clients that I see regularly. It's a couple, and the only time they practice yoga is when they come to see me. And last week I tried to teach them a sun salutation, and we went so slow, and they were still completely overwhelmed. And they left the class, and I could tell they weren't in a relaxed state at all when they left. Normally when we, what I do with them is maybe some like gentle hatha, and maybe a few yin poses here and there, and then I go into like restorative poses with them. And they always, whenever I do a class like that with them, they leave just on cloud nine. I can just see it like radiating from them. And then the one time I tried to do even a slow vinyasa, they were just totally overwhelmed. And this is me teaching them, who's like, I'm moving like step by step. I'm not moving before they're ready to move. They've ended up in the last step that we were at. They've breathed in that step. Now we're going to the next thing. It was still too much. Yeah. So
and vinyasa is very stimulating to the nervous system. So
absolutely. Yes.
Doing with vinyasa yoga, there's a point and a purpose. And that was my journey, was I got, glamorized by the power of vinyasa, but it's been over 10 years that I've been teaching now, and I've just realized that my practice is not the practice that I want to teach, and anymore it's not even the one I want to practice. So I love that you're seeing that as well. And I am seeing in the studios too more draw towards the restorative and the yin practices, the nidras. But it's again, I think it comes down to, it can be so much more potent when you have a small group, a one-on-one or a workshop kind of setting.
Yeah, and I just ran a workshop, Your Brain on Pain and How Yoga Can Help. And I had 5 people in the class.
Oh, wow.
And I still made money.
Yeah.
And it was a super small group, and we had spare time, and everyone was able to ask questions. Oh, I have a hard time in this pose. What do I do? We kind of did a little like mini fix it workshop at the end, and I loved it. I love having a smaller group. I love diving deeper and connecting more.
Sorry, I have to get my dog because we've got noises happening. Yeah, and will you speak a little bit, because I'm sure that what you just said piqued some people who might be listening's interest in Your Brain on Pain. Could you say just something briefly about that, maybe?
So would you like me to explain a little bit about what persistent pain is? And
yeah, just give us a little outline of that.
So basically, when you have, I'm trying to change my language to use persistent pain instead of chronic pain. And the reason why I'm trying to do that is because like the words we use matter, right? Our brain listens and pays attention. So when you use the word chronic, it makes it sound like it's never going away.
Yeah.
So with the word persistent, to me, it has a less of a harsh tone to it. And is a little bit more of a hopeful word to me, that maybe this can change. And that's really important distinction. So basically, chronic pain is a sensory and emotional process. Mm-hmm. So when most people have pain issues, they go on like a search and destroy mission. They think there's something wrong with their tissues. And so they end up doing like endless rounds of like trying to find that practitioner that's going to solve the problem, trying to find the right medication or treatment or surgery or things that are going to solve the issue. And there is absolutely value in that approach because sometimes our tissues are damaged and they do need help. But the aspect that often gets missed is that persistent pain is a nervous system issue. So there's a difference between acute pain and persistent pain. They're not the same thing. Mm-hmm. So they say 3 to 6 months of pain that gets you into this chronic persistent problem. So basically what happens is, as time goes on, our nervous system becomes like a negative feedback loop. So it becomes more sensitized and more alert towards the pain. So there are certain changes that happen. The nerves themselves become more sensitized. There's more of them in the area that we're having pain. And then the nervous system, like our spinal cord, it will send the signals and pay more attention to the area that we're having pain in. And then our brain is going to pay more attention to it.
Okay, yeah.
So then also what happens is the emotional component comes into play because our emotions drive what our brain is going to be paying attention to. Mm. So if we have a lot of fear about our body and negative thoughts towards our body, like catastrophizing, then that leads and contributes to our negative feedback loop that we have.
Right.
So that's why I go back to saying that's why I'm changing my language, because what we think about our pain is really important.
That's right. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I like to do what I taught the folks in the workshop I did was I like to use the koshas as an opportunity to do like a mindfulness moment. And I'm a terrible yoga teacher and I always forget the Sanskrit names, so I'm looking them up.
I don't think that's the definition of a terrible yoga teacher.
No. So what I go through, and I do this exercise with people, and it's like just a little chart. Can you guys see that? Just like a little line graph chart. And on the one side, I have the SNS, the sympathetic nervous system. And then on the other hand, I have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like our rest and healing state. And so what we do is we just go through each of the layers of the body and talk about what are we feeling in each layer, in each state. So when we're in a pain state, what are we feeling in our physical body? Usually pain, burning, weakness, tightness, all of these kinds of things. And then in our breath, maybe our breath is short and shallow and you're not paying attention to it. And then our emotional, we're full of fear, worry, anxiety, all of these really negative emotions. And then in our wisdom body, I have had times where I just completely forget all the lessons that I've learned in the past about how to deal with pain. And I'm doing, I'm in a fear state. I've completely forgotten everything. And along with the bliss body, like you forget who you are. And all you think about is your pain. So then if we flip the coin and we go into our PNS state, well, how's my body feeling when I'm rested and feeling good? It's loose, it's strong, it's energized. My breath is calm and easy. My emotions are happy, I'm focused, I can concentrate. I can think clearly and make good decisions. I can remember my lessons that I've learned about pain and about life and make good decisions. And then my bliss, it's like I know who I am. I like to go for dog walks and take pictures and ride my bike. So I like to use this tool because then what people can do is they can journal this out if, you know, maybe once a day. And eventually it becomes almost more an automatic thing. So you become aware of the different energetic layers of our body and what's going on throughout the day. Yeah, and I give everyone usually breathing exercises to do to help them to connect to their breath. That is a huge doorway in to everything. Yeah.
I just love that. I mean, this is the foundation of so much of my own teaching as well. I love the koshas as a model that it's, or really even a tool to check in with yourself. How am I doing now? Let's see.
Yeah.
How am I doing? Energetically, how am I doing? And just going through that. And then, you know, like you said, layering the breath as your tool to actually impact change, whether that means, and breath is so connected to the nervous system as well. So
absolutely.
Feeling sluggish, you can speed up the breath. If you're feeling heightened, you can slow down the breath. You can change. Exactly.
Yeah. I've been really into the breath of fire lately in the afternoon, because that's when my energy myself is really low. So if I take a few minutes and I go and, you know, do some breath of fire, I'm like, woohoo, let's go. I got the rest of the day. Like it's incredible, really.
Yeah, instead of that coffee in the middle of the day.
Or sugar.
Yes, that is what we go for, and that just increases the inflammation. So if you're dealing with persistent pain, and I also agree with you on the language. The language we use is so important. So
it really is. And so, you know, when I was at the beginning of this journey, I was really annoyed when people would tell me I was being catastrophizing. Such a hard word. I was like, I'm not doing that. This is reality. Like, I'm not being dramatic. This is just what my life is like. Deal with it. It used to drive me nuts. But in reality I was catastrophizing. Yeah. I was living in the future of all the bad things that could happen.
Yeah.
And now that it takes time and a lot of work and a lot of therapy. Like, yoga hasn't done this all on its own. I've gone to cognitive behavioral therapy to try and change this way of thinking. Yeah. And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And it is, I like that you're also saying it is a lot of work. Yoga is a practice, and it's a constant practice. We have to constantly come back. We constantly check in, constantly reframe or shift perspective, or see if there's a new way to look at it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I take yoga vacations. Mm-hmm. I was just on vacation. I didn't do yoga for 4 days because I was like, I need a break. Right? Like, I don't practice every day.
Yeah.
You know, yet at the same time, I'm practicing all the time.
Exactly. And
it's that the physical or breath practices, I'm not necessarily doing it constantly. I just, honestly, it takes a lot of willpower, especially when you have chronic illness. And I'm still learning and working on what I call self-care burnout. Right? Because you, as someone with chronic illness, I mean, you could just wrap your whole day around doing self-care. Right? And I don't necessarily think that's the healthiest thing. You have to give yourself space to just be sometimes.
Well, and just like for anyone, I think there are times to push yourself forward and times to back away. And
absolutely.
And even self-care can become an overdoing, right? Because we have to do self-care. It's another action, another thing, another appointment on the calendar, you know. And sometimes self-care is just being.
Yes, you're so right. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down, and I might put that out on Instagram. Okay.
Self-care is being. I think I had a Facebook post about that too. Self-care is just being, which means it's accessible to any of us, right? Where so many of the other things we think of as self-care can be so costly, so expensive.
Yeah. One yogic philosophy that I like to bring into my self-care is ahimsa. Mm-hmm. So if you view it in the light of, I'm doing this because I love myself and I care for my body, like my body is like an innocent bystander of these, you know, circumstances that have happened to me, it makes it a lot easier. You know, instead of it being a chore on my list of things to do, it's it reverses the energy around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a you know, even the word ahimsa, you know, we translate it as nonviolence. I think it's called the power of yoga, but it's kind of the Yoga Sutras written from more of a feminine perspective.
I love Nisha Joy Debbie.
Yeah,
She's
and she says ahimsa is kindness, which
yeah.
if I change that non-violence to kindness, well, be kind. You know, I'm being kind to myself, and yeah, it's and in the yoga therapy that I practice, it's Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy. We kind of move through 8 themes, and the first theme is befriending the body. And so, you know, in what you're saying, working with persistent pain, that's a big step.
It can be a really long step.
Exactly.
Because if you're terrified of your body, it takes a long time to come to a good relationship with it. Well, and you can also have a lot of like hate towards your body.
Yeah.
Like there is a time where I was just like angry, like all the time. I think I talked about that on Shannon's podcast too. Like I was just pissed is the only way I can describe it. Like, come on, we're supposed to be on the same team here and I can't even like function. Come on. Like it's taken me a long time.
Yeah. And I think in so many ways, anytime our body is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, anytime we lose trust in our own body, you know, anytime we feel like, well, I can't make plans because I might be sick or I might not be able to do it physically.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that
takes a long time. I think that's a long process of healing.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is, whether it's, you know, losing a limb because of an accident or whether it's a persistent pain or illness, like whatever can manifest on a physical level. It's a hard
yeah. The you know, and then the journey isn't always that clear too. Like you have a lot of things going on all at once. You know, so you're trying to make peace and make love with your body, but then at the same time, you know, there's that whole grief process.
Yes.
Going through. Yeah. So it's a really emotional process. Having chronic pain is very emotional, but you know, Western medicine approaches it as such a physical issue. And I know that a lot of people get very frustrated with doctors who send them to, you know, the counselor or the psychologist or give them antidepressants because they feel like it's all in their doctor is saying, oh, it's all in my brain. It's all in my head. I'm making this up. But the reality is that actually that can be an extremely powerful way to help disrupt that cycle. Yeah. And, it's such an important component, and I feel frustrated with our Western medicine that it's not explained properly and it's not given importance. Yeah.
Well, and so often I feel like, I mean, the patient wants a fix, but the doctor also is trying to deliver that fix, and so between the two, you know, I just think of our opioid epidemic that we have now. I mean, if you're dealing with pain, the first thing you want is to be out of pain.
Yes.
And so that's an easy way to start an escape.
Yes. But absolutely.
Actually.
Yes, and then on top of it, you're in emotional pain when you have physical pain, right? And so then if you're taking something like an opioid, it helps you to dissociate from your emotions and your body. And I think that's a really dangerous combination. And I'm not against opioids if they're used responsibly and correctly. I think they can be helpful. There are people out there who need them to function because of whatever has happened to them.
Yeah.
But it I feel, it's I'm conflicted about it. I have a friend who's had a lot of harm because of prescription opioids. It was very harmful. So, it's a tough place to be.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot. There needs to be almost a deeper level of conversation between the care provider and the patient at that point to find out, when does this help, and when can you maybe work with the pain in a different way? Because I feel like your story,
exactly.
and your story has been so much about learning to live with yourself with the pain that you have, right?
Totally. Absolutely. And I just wish that because I don't know what the stats are, but I know a huge amount of doctor's visits are because I'm in pain, right? A lot of people don't go to the doctor until they're in pain. And I once it gets to that persistent pain area, I wish that it was like the first thing the doctors do is just send people to a pain education.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that happening for anyone.
No.
Yeah,
and so the area that I work in, I believe that there is a physical manifestation of psycho-emotional spiritual pain. I believe there is a psycho-emotional spiritual manifestation of physical pain, where it's a chicken and the egg to me, like where it starts.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And so, pain is pain. And so I believe that pretty much all of us could use some lessons in what is pain and how do we work with pain, right?
Yes, I completely agree.
And I think you could go back to the koshas with that too, with what layer of the koshas, what layer of our human experience is the pain manifesting in. Sometimes it's energetic pain, isn't it? Sometimes it is pain of thought. Sometimes it's pain of emotion. Could be any of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and this is part of why I'm trying to bring pelvic pain yoga to the people who have pelvic pain. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like a lot of people who have pelvic pain, they get really caught up in that search and destroy mode because their doctor has said to them, oh, you have endometriosis or you have interstitial cystitis. So that's the cause of your pain. So then they're like, oh, well, what do I do to treat just that? Yeah. They're trying to manage just the syndrome that they have, where they're not addressing the rest of their whole selves. And then the other aspect that is really not getting enough attention in people who have pelvic pain is the pelvic floor. So, these muscles can become quite dysfunctional, and they are directly related to our stress response. Mm-hmm. So if you're having stress of any kind, they've done studies to show that the pelvic floor engages. Mm. So for people who have pelvic pain, it is almost like a double negative. So they have perhaps like a physical illness going on, but then all of the emotional pain that goes along with that is contributing to their pain because their pelvic floor is most likely overly tight or dysfunctional in some way. And they've done a study for interstitial cystitis, like 87% of the people with it have pelvic floor dysfunction.
Oh, wow.
But most people, it's slowly changing. It's taking time. They don't go to the pelvic floor therapist until they've tried all of these other things. When in reality, the pelvic floor therapist could be the one thing that really makes a difference. And the yoga can be a really, really fabulous supportive therapy for the physiotherapy. So to learn how to breathe, learn how to relax, learn to acknowledge your stress triggers, pelvic floor awareness, pelvic floor excursion. All of these things can be really, really helpful for people with pelvic pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And even more than, I mean, this is where it ties into yoga for me too, because it's the three diaphragms of the body, right? So pelvic floor, the breathing, respiratory diaphragm, and then up in the throat.
And they've also linked the foot.
And the foot too. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we look at the bandhas. We've got all the
Yeah.
bandhas happening here. I wonder if
Exactly.
find
Yeah.
in there as well. But
yeah.
It's all connected. It is.
Yeah. So they've also done studies that link like clenching the jaw and tension in the shoulders to pelvic floor tightness.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's all linked together. And when I went for pelvic floor therapy, and I'm going to get personal. I'm like such an oversharer. I had rectal therapy done, and it was like she tapped into every single piece of stress I have ever felt in my entire life.
Wow.
So it's like, some people hold their stress in their shoulders. Mm-hmm. Some people hold it in their pelvic floor. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. That's what happened to me. Wow. And if I had had more awareness of this problem, it would have made such a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And I am incredibly grateful that I had a good urologist. And the first time I went to go see him, I had a file really thick. And he said, you've done all the things, you need to explore alternative therapies. I can't help you. And I was absolutely shocked. And then I went and did some alternative things and just kind of carried on. And then what happened was I just one day woke up with extreme pelvic pain and it just never went away. And it felt different, similar yet different than what it felt like in the past. And so I went back to him and he said, well, I think you need to go for pelvic floor therapy again. And I want you to go see someone else who I'd seen previously. I'd moved anyways. And it made it was like I completely rediscovered my body and completely rediscovered how my body all works together. And it was really transformative. But I'm having a hard time connecting with people in the pelvic pain community. Like I've been online, I've been talking about it, I've been writing blogs, I've been on the Instagram, and it's like crickets. And I'm not sure I'm not sure why that is. And I don't know how to communicate better or differently or whatnot. It's like people don't want to hear about it. Yeah. I don't know what that is, Yeah,
that's
I
that up.
Yeah, I look on the message boards for people with interstitial cystitis, like the Facebook groups and stuff, and almost like no one's talking about yoga and how it can help. And a lot of people, maybe they've gone to one pelvic floor therapist and it's not been a good experience. And so, or maybe it wasn't as effective as they thought it should be. And so now they just discount the whole process that's there. And yeah, I would love to learn from anyone who's tried to bring a new way of dealing with a problem to a community of how to do that. Yeah.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I do think there's, if we look at who is your niche population, there are so many, and yet some of them are so difficult to reach. And sometimes I wonder if it's just a difficult thing to talk about. I work with prenatal and postnatal, and I also work with pelvic floor health. And I think that mothers are embarrassed, to talk about it, or they laugh about it as if, hee, this is normal.
Yes.
And so, yoga gets overlooked in so many ways.
Yeah.
And a part of me wonders if it's also because it's not the easy fix.
No, it certainly is not an easy fix.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a lot of work.
the whole time is yoga is a practice. It's a constant practice, and I believe that it actually can help, but it's not gonna help instantaneously, and it's
Yeah.
gonna take consistent effort and revisiting and looking at it again.
Yeah.
Maybe that's our misconception about yoga. Also, going back to studio yoga, we think, well, that's yoga, and so how does
Yeah.
that help me, right? It's
Mhm.
dig a little bit deeper and reach those populations with maybe an education that yoga is actually much more than that. When you take it away from the studios,
Mhm.
you've got your one-on-one client with a practitioner who can meet you
Mhm.
with what you need.
Yes, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of preconceived ideas about yoga,
Mm-hmm.
and
There's a lot of
people just have this image I have people doing headstands,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, so that's why I started the Facebook group, Yoga for People with Pelvic Pain,
Yeah.
so that I could, I've been trying to go live once a week with a little like half-hour practice and sharing things to the page and whatnot, just so people can get an idea of like, what pelvic floor relaxation looks like, what pelvic health yoga looks like, what, um, just to get a little bit more out there. There are some really fabulous resources out there, like Shelley Prosco and with Your Pace Yoga, and Dusty and Miller, I believe, has some stuff out too. Not 100% sure, and they're absolutely wonderful resources. But I don't feel like there's anyone like who's within the community who is spouting its benefits. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you on that. I think as I just posted today about, I don't think yoga teachers need to learn better marketing. I think we need to rather, or maybe this is the better marketing, is talking about all the benefits of yoga. Like, yeah, and I'm a little
Yeah, I think that
now.
it needs to be like the marketing should be personal.
Mm-hmm.
It should be something that people actually want to connect with and are interested in.
Yeah,
You,
which is
you
what
know, that's
really applaud what you are doing. Very specifically looking at people with pelvic floor pain. It's something you have experienced and you have worked hard to live with. You have integrated your experience into your life, and now you can use that to serve others.
yeah.
Very small population again. So
Yeah.
That's the struggle. But I think more voices like you speak so well to it.
Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna keep trying. I am naturally like one of my things that my personality is I'm very greedy. So like I want it all like success yesterday, and I get really impatient and I get frustrated quite easily. So I've been, frustrated at the lack of, because I'm so excited and then like no one else seems to care. So it doesn't, it's not, my ego gets a little bit bruised and then I'm greedy and I just want it all done yesterday. So I have to remember to have patience and to, it's almost like it's my seva, it's my service. I'm trying to be of service, and if that's all it goes, then I should be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you're alone in all of that. I think we all want it. We all want it now, and yet yoga seems like this experiential kind of process. So, I feel like the people who believe in it are the ones who have experienced it.
Yes, totally.
And that's so hard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Someone to get started when they have no idea what it might be, what the possibility.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely hear you in that. But I do applaud everything that you're doing. And if there's any way you can get some more support or some more likes or spread the word,
Thank
whatever.
you, Kristen. You know what? It is slowly growing.
Good.
It is growing. But you know, a lot of Facebook groups sometimes they're just like very quiet
Mm,
groups, and then there's other groups that are just seem really, really active.
yeah.
A lot of engaged people, and sometimes it just takes getting that one person or a few people who are, you know, they're into it and they want to interact, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna try to be consistent and just keep going. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, just to give you a little tip, since I've been running Facebook groups for quite a while, sometimes it's about throwing out a very random, lighthearted question that's just going to get people talking, you know,
Yeah.
and then asking a hard question, or then
Yeah.
posing an idea or a thought. But
Yeah. If it's all really heavy,
yeah,
then that's
post
a
your
turn off.
favorite GIF. You know, that's a great way to get get some interaction. Or
Yeah.
post a GIF that shows how you're feeling right now. You know, people
Yeah.
love to share that kind of stuff, and then see if you can.
See, it's funny because with um, my I really love Facebook. Like I have a little bit of a problem with it. Fully admitted social media addict. But I really don't enjoy people who overshare too much from their personal,
Mm-hmm.
like day-to-day things. I want to learn information,
Right.
right? So for me to naturally share those small things is hard for me.
Yeah.
So
That's why
I
I
can
think something
easily
really
share
like
like
a GIF. Silly. Make it totally silly.
yeah, see, that's not easy for me. Whereas I'm like, ooh, a study. Let me share this with you. And like, no one cares. I'm the only one who cares.
Yeah. I'm with you there too. And
Yeah.
most of my Facebook feed is actually from various groups that are pretty nerdy, pretty
Yeah.
research oriented, and
Yeah.
people aren't interested. But I am. So
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good tip. Maybe I'll try and incorporate that more, just to keep it a little bit more lighthearted and fun.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a comfort zone thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, it's hard also because I'm working still. So there's times where I just don't have the energy
Yeah,
or the attention for it, you know? So
and that's important too.
yeah, my mortgage needs to be paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've really been inspired talking to you. I like I said already, I applaud the work that you're doing. I hope to see it grow. I
Thank you.
feel like we're at a kind of a precipice of a change in the yoga world where there have been yoga therapists around and people like you working more one-on-one for a very specific reason, but they're not in the, you know, they're not as visible. And so I
Yeah.
feel like we're starting to see that a little bit more as
Mhm.
yoga in the West starts to mature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
There,
high hopes.
I hope so. Yeah. There's a yoga therapist in town.
Oh, good.
She just opened
Great.
up an office. So
Wonderful.
maybe I'll go see her.
You know, that might be something too, collaborating with someone who's got a skill set that can also help your population, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I was just meaning to go see her myself. You know,
Oh,
I'm offering private yoga. I've never even hired someone for private yoga before, which is just crazy. I need to do it.
you know, there could be a lot of learning there for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this has been really great. And thank you, Helena. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
Um, no, I think that's it. Come see me on Instagram at Spears Yoga or on my website, helenaspearsyoga.com, or in the Facebook group, Yoga for People with Pelvic Pain.
Yeah. And
Thank you so much for having me.
huh?
I just said thank you so much for having me
Oh,
and inviting me
absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. And I can vouch for that Facebook connection because that's how I found you too. I just sent you a message and you responded. So
Yeah,
I feel like that's a point of growth for me too, is just I find someone who's interesting and reach out, say hi.
totally.
Find something
Yeah.
I'm curious about. So thanks to everyone who's watching, and find us on Business of Yoga, find Helena, and we'll talk to you soon.